Well, hello there, and welcome to another edition of Warbird Wednesday. My name is Fred Bell. I am the Vice Chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum, and we are working our way down the experimental pathway to the F-117, which, by the way, our hangar now at the Air Museum is open. The F-117 hangar, the James Houston Pavilion. You can come in there and see the airplane as we're still working on it. I like to call it, Greg, in our Palmdale look, which is the pre-production version of the airplane. People go, why is the airplane silver? Well, the airplane is silver because they took off all the RAM, which is the radar absorbent material. We are going to have to paint it once we get all the sheet metal work done. So if you see the airplane at the museum right now, think of it as you're walking down the production line as these were being built in Palmdale 40 some years ago, and voila, you're there. Now, Greg has got me looking like I am doing a children's show, maybe Mr. Rogers or something. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, Greg, and I'm Mr. Conductor, so I have no idea what this is, but I am conducting this. I'm going to take that off. Man, that one was a noggin crusher. Do you know that? My obscurant assistant got that hat. Good catch by the Kenny there, I might add. So today we're talking about the Northrop, the XB-35. Now we're going to migrate, because this airplane actually migrated into some additional types of airplanes. We're going to talk about it. This is the Flying Wing Heavy Bomber. It was designed by Jack Northrop. And Jack Northrop is really an amazing aircraft designer. We're going to talk a little bit about him today. But we're going to talk about the Flying Wing. I'm going to throw up a plan view. Now, for those of you going, that's not the XB-35. No, this is the variant as the airplane morphed into the YB-49. We're going to talk about why that happened, Greg, because it's kind of important. So now, the interesting thing on the lineage on this airplane was it goes back to 1941, pre-war. People think that flying wings were designed, some futuristic design, and because the wing shape eventually with the B-2 bomber, by the way, became synonymous with stealth and radar evasion, so to speak, people think that this was designed for that. This aircraft started development in 1941, pre-war, with Jack Northrop and Consolidated. They were trying to come up with a bomber that could go very fast, very high with a payload. This aircraft was rated at a top speed of 331 miles an hour, so it was fairly quick for a bomber. Now that's a top speed, remember, that's wide open, and that's with props. We're going to talk about that because that's what the XB-35 originally had in it when it was a prototype aircraft. So the airplane was designed. Now, there were other people at that time also working on interesting designs around these shapes, and one of them was the Germans. The Germans were working on the America bomber, America with a K, and that was designed to try to get all the way to the United States to drop a bomb and get out of Europe. Now, of course, the Germans didn't get there for a variety of reasons. Hitler made sure by dispersing their resources that there was just no way they were going to ever make that happen. But the point is that this airplane and this shape was in design long before anybody really realized that its radar cross-section, that the shape did not reflect radar, which is very cool. So Jack Northrop also started out, everybody looked at this and went, you are absolutely out of your mind.
Who ever heard of airplanes without tails? Birds have tails, haven't they? If they didn't need them, they wouldn't have them. Flying wings.
They came up with some all-wood prototypes that were called the N9M, which tragically Planes of Fame actually lost one a few years ago. That was wonderful to watch that thing fly. It had a very interesting propulsion system. But basically what Northrop did, what good old Jack did, was he built some prototypes that were kind of proof of concept. Remember, these aircraft, because they have no tail, what you would think is a traditional aileron is actually a flaperon. which would change the attitude of the airplane. They'd open up kind of, I want to say like a clamshell, and maybe Greg can actually find a B-2 opening its flaperons. But they actually had a different way of controlling the airplane, and Jack needed to prove that. Now, the interesting thing about the N9M and the early designs on the XB-35 is, what was the other thing that wasn't in there? Fly-by-wire. Everybody thinks that, you know, like with the Stealth, with the shape, the F-117, you're fly-by-wire. That is true because the aircraft was the Stealth fighter is inherently unstable. It's built in a shape to reflect radar. This aircraft, although they did have stability problems with it, they were able to get them to a proof of concept stage to prove that it actually worked. That was with cables and pulleys and traditional flight controls. No flight control computers. Now, this model actually has jets, and this is a later version. We're going to talk about that. This actually has jet engines. But the initial version of the XB-35 flew in 1946, and it had traditional engines on it with propellers. Now, these were counter-rotating propellers. The interesting thing about the counter-rotating props, and Greg, I'm sure you go out and find some images of this, was that they got about 4 flights out of them, and then they started having all kinds of problems with propellers and balance in the propulsion system. So much so that, and they all went bad after about 4 flights. The engines and the props were not owned by Northrop. They were actually provided by a third party under license with the US government. So the fact that they were having problems with the propulsion system and the fact that Northrop didn't own the propulsion system on the design made everything much worse. So later models of the airplane, actually, they realized they weren't going to be able to go any further with those props, with those counter-rotating props, with the dual prop system, and they got rid of them and they put jet engines on these airplanes initially. That's what they did. The aircraft performance improved tremendously with the jet engines, and they realized they had something. But the other problem they had was that the bomb bay on the airplane, the Air Force stipulated that the aircraft had to be able to carry an atomic bomb, and the atomic bomb at the time wouldn't fit in the bomb bay. Now, if they had gone on and worked on that, they would have solved that problem, or they would have changed the design of the bomb. But they decided, the Air Force decided that because of all the teething problems and the fact that they were after another aircraft, Greg, if you think about that, and what was that? The Convair, the B-36. We're going to talk about that in a moment. And so this airplane kind of in the 35 variant and out to the YB and XB-35s, it didn't go anywhere. And they ended up scrapping the airplanes. You can believe that. Now, the Air Force liked what they saw, Greg. And so what they did was they went out and they started talking about the YB-49. Same design, or similar design, but jet engines. Now, my understanding was there were 6 engines. This model has 8. So I'm going to go with that my understanding is wrong and the memory is wrong on this, and that this is right, is that there's 8 jet engines on this. But either way, there were multiple jet engines per side, and the aircraft performed admirably. Now, what I want to do today is I want to talk about 2 people that were heavily involved in that program, one of which just passed away, which is General Cardenas. General Cardenas, who is heavily involved in the flying wing program, just passed away. And the other one is Jack Northrop. Jack Northrop probably, General Cardenas was involved and was at all of the major early events in test flight, and he was a staple in American flight test. Jack Northrop probably is one of the greatest American aircraft designers of all time, and I'm gonna double down on that. Probably one of the best and American designers, and was pivotal in a lot of things at the time that he didn't even realize. I'm going to tie a bow around that so you understand what I mean. But first, Greg has gone out and Dublin 1891 soda. It's a craft soda, always made, they got the memo, always made with pure cane sugar. So these guys, there's a pure cane sugar cabal going around here somewhere. Now this one has obviously Dublin, we're not talking about Dublin, Ireland, we're talking about Dublin, Texas. I can see the great state of Texas there. All of you Texans, one bottle, 150 calories, not too bad. Dublin, Texas, right there. And I have no idea what this is going to taste like, but I can tell you that it has a strange color, very similar to de-icing fluid in aircraft. It is a very interesting blue. So we're going to pop that open. And to two key people, General Cardenas and to Jack Northrop, I salute you. Blueberry. Doesn't look like blueberry. Blueberry to me is a little darker there, but pretty good. Greg, you're losing your touch. This is 2 weeks in a row that I can actually drink this stuff. Now, this is bad for me because it's got all this sugar. Prerequisite second sip, although I'm going to put it down because I got chewed out last week for finishing that entire drink. So I have to be careful about people watch us and go, how can you, because you get to a point where you're not a kid anymore and you just can't knock back these highly sugary drinks. And I hear about it, Greg, I hear about it. So the YB-49, now this was a capable airplane, jet powered, fully controlled, good bomb bay. I don't really think that they still quite understood its radar. I can't really find anything that the airplane was that they realized that it could, didn't have as much of a radar cross section as the tail of a conventional airplane. But what they did have was, remember, we talked about this lift and the fact that it could lift very heavy loads, and this was a very efficient, the wing was an extremely efficient design. And so they had a winner on their hands, and the Air Force actually ordered 30 of the YRB aircraft. Now, here is where the American industrial establishment comes in, and politics. Now, it cannot be proven, but Jack Northrop always felt the 30 aircraft were canceled. And by the way, this was his baby at this point. If you want to talk about an airplane that Jack Northrop felt wrong, and Northrop's a big company, they did a lot of different airplanes. But if you want to talk about the airplane that, if you read about Jack Northrop, the airplane that he felt he was done wrong on was this airplane, and he loved this airplane. They canceled the 30 airplanes, and the B-36 contract, of which they built 380, went to Convair. If you ask Jack Northrop what happened, he will tell you that because Northrop refused to merge with Convair, which is true because the terms to Northrop were not good terms, that the military and the people in charge, and I'm not going to name names, punished him and canceled the contract. And he felt that to his dying day. And subsequently, all of the wings were scrapped and done away with, and the airplane went into history. Now, it is said, and I have read, and I get a little choked up about this, because Jack Northrop, at the end of his life, that they actually took him, I'm getting misty, Greg. They actually took him and rolled him into a hangar with a B-2. At the end, he was still alive. The aircraft, the B-2 is a black airplane at that point, and they actually rolled him into the hangar, and he saw the B-2 in, obviously going to be now the nation's leading bomber, that actually came to fruition. And I understand that he was very happy about that. I've read about that. I hope it's true. It would be nice that somebody's life work, you know, he could see the airplane he believed in so strongly finally come to fruition. Because it really, this is I don't normally advocate for aircraft design, but this airplane back in the day should have been built. There's no reason why the amount of airplanes that they built, and we look at Century Series fighters and all the aircraft they went through, this aircraft is an aircraft that should have actually gone into the inventory. It's just, and you can argue with me in the comment section about that if you want, but that's just my opinion. Now, Horten on the German side was working on the HO, the 229, and they worked on various variants of that. That's over at the Smithsonian, which is the Horten wing. But now we're going to get off into the interesting world, Greg, of dark airplanes, black airplanes, because the wing design, as designers have found out, the wing design has an interesting radar cross section, and it's very efficient, right? The wing is very efficient. It has spawned all kinds of various designs in wing, both robotic airplanes like the RQ-170, the Sentinel, which is called, the nickname is the Beast of Kandahar. That is a robotic kind of wedge-shaped wing airplane that supposedly flies for the CIA, which is a reconnaissance airplane. That airplane is supposedly operating right now. Now we're going to go way into dark land with other derivatives of this shape that are percolating in the public's perception. One of them is, I should have put on my foil helmet, Greg, the TR-3A, the Black Manta. And Greg, you can go out and look that one up. This is totally an aircraft of lore. Aurora is another aircraft. Both of these supposedly have exotic propulsion systems, but like, you know, we've talked about scramjets and pulse jets and them going faster. A lot of these aircraft may be built around this or different types of propulsion systems, Greg. But the Black Manta, also the SR-72, the Dark Star, which, by the way, in the new Top Gun movie, if you watch the trailer, there are some people, there's a wedge-shaped airplane in there that he's flying, a wingy type of airplane that people have said is the SR-72. So the airplane moved from a very efficient design to, they realized the other benefits of using the airplane, which came into stealth, right, which became stealthy. Then the design and the shape has kind of moved in both more of a delta shape and then also more of a kind of a bat shape. And Greg, there are all kinds of photos on the internet of people that there are aircraft out there, I don't know what they are, what they're flying. It would be unreasonable to believe that they aren't flying some of these types of airplanes. We don't know what they are. More power to you if you are flying one of those airplanes. But they are out there. Now I'm going to give you some homework because this design continues to live on. And that is that we want to talk about, and Greg's going to have fun with this one, span loaders. And span loaders is, you know, the weight distribution across this is equally loaded. And span loading aircraft are aircraft that are kind of a flying wing shape, and then they have like a pod or the load in the center. But if you're an aircraft aficionado, I encourage you to go out to the web, type in span loaders, and you'll see a whole kind of different types of these kind of wings. This shape is not going away. It's going to become more and more prevalent in aircraft design. Now, the big thing about what we do at the Air Museum is we can't restore these airplanes, or we're standing in front of Mitch the Witch today. We cannot make that happen if we don't get your very generous donation. So today, if you want to go into that link that's in the description on this video, click on that link, send us a couple of bucks. If you came across us on YouTube and you're excited about the TR-3B, the Manta, or the RQ-170, the Sentinel, we encourage you to go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on YouTube. Now, there's another thing that we do, Greg, and that is we sell merchandise, if you can believe that. And today we have these cool, very cool, could even be gifted Palm Springs Air Museum hats. Now, you'll notice, Greg, what's different about this hat? It has our new logo. And our new logo has, what does it have? It has the wedge. The wedge is our updated logo right there. So we have updated. We are now in the in 2022 with our logo. But click on that link, go out and get have Jason send you one of these caps. We have multiple colors. You can see it on the website. My name is Fred Bell. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum. Thanks so very much for joining us. Have a great day.